Before we begin, I want to take a moment to remind you about the upcoming Moving Titan Retreat, October 2nd through the 4th in Tampa, Florida. This will be the only large-scale independent moving conference in North America this year, and you are not going to want to miss this opportunity to hear from 8- and 9-figure moving and home service entrepreneurs and experts while masterminding with up to 500 moving company owners. We're bringing back Tommy Mello, Sean Crane, and Reagan Weiss for 2.5 days, and this isn't going to be some motivational rah-rah event. We are specifically focusing on tactical strategies that you can immediately take home and start multiplying your business headed into the fall and winter. And make sure that you never have another slow winter and off season again. We'll have more networking opportunities, more vendors setting up displays, and a full day workshop on day 3 where you can work directly one-on-one with Tommy and the other speakers to dial in your business. There might even be some surprise guests and entertainment. But don't wait to lock in your tickets. Early bird tickets are the lowest they will ever be, and prices go up August 1st. Visit movingtitanretreats.com. That's movingtitanretreats.com, or check the link in the description and lock in your tickets before the prices go up or before we sell out, because we will sell out. I'll see you there. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. I'm your host, Wade Sweikel, with Two College Brothers Moving and Storage, based out of Tampa, Florida, and locations in Gainesville and San Antonio. Today's guest, we have a very special guest, a true titan of industry, and somebody who is going to be speaking at our upcoming Moving Titan Retreat, October 2nd to 4th in Tampa, Florida. We've got Steve Kuhn, who is currently the acting sitting CEO of MG Moving Services. MG Moving Services is about a $25 million company with 5 locations in Northern Virginia, Central Virginia, and South Florida. They've got 175 employees, 75 trucks, and Steve actually came from JK Moving Services, where he was an executive that helped to grow that company into the largest independent company in North America, with his brother, who is also a titan of industry, Chuck Kuhn. But this episode is about Steve. Steve, thank you so much for coming on to the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. We're looking forward to having you at the upcoming retreat. And you just know how to make a moving company into a mammoth. I mean, I'm really excited about this episode. But can you tell me a little bit about your backstory, how you kind of got your start in the moving industry, and then what the story behind MG Moving Services is?
Yeah, absolutely, Wade. I appreciate it. It's my pleasure to be here with you. It's quite an honor to be asked to be here with you. I really admire what you're doing. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you for your time to come on.
Big deal. Yeah, so just kind of some background on me. I joined forces with my brother at JK back in the 80s, where I drove a moving truck for 10 years, from 1979 to 1989. The last few years was working with my brother at JK. 89, I got off the trucks. I blew out my back. So I took over sales for JK in 1990. We were strictly a COD mover back then, residential COD. And in 1989, the company was doing about 850 grand at the time. So I took over sales, didn't really know what I was doing, self-taught. We had a direct mail program at the time. We had yellow pages, were very popular, but that was primarily the main way that you marketed your business back then. My parents were the only mentors that we really had at the time. But so it was doing estimates, trying to cultivate relationships, doing estimates. And we quickly learned that you had to have a process. And it was at that point that I realized that a proper process inside of this industry can cure a lot of mistakes or defects in people. If your teammate can help you carry the ball down the field as it exchanges hands, rather than point fingers, that process can actually cure a lot of evils. So it was probably 1990 when we realized that. My brother was the dispatcher. I was the only sales guy. And in order to keep him happy with the work that was coming in, we had to have a process that made it easy for him to do his job because the crews meant so much to him that everything had to go well. So I had a tough audience. So again, the process was, I was doing between 8 and 12 estimates a day, believe it or not, in the early 90s. And I had to collect all the data, the notes, the details. So when I closed the deals at night, I was able to channel that information through so that dispatch was able to properly handle the work. So that's where the process mind originally came from for us. So as things grew through the 90s, the next year I hired a salesperson. 6 months after that, I hired another. We were growing like a weed because we did things a little bit differently than most. At the time, the big difference was, and it's kind of come back full circle, being quick to the call when a customer has a service need. Back then, a moving company wasn't expected to really be a strong responsive service provider. So the fact that we became that strong responsive service to provider separated us from the pack. I mean, we were in Washington, D.C., and, these two young kids that had a process blew out the competition at the time. We were much more receptive, friendly, process driven. If somebody wanted to call in and wanted an estimate, we wouldn't let them off the phone until they got one. If somebody wanted to book a move, we wouldn't let them off the phone until we booked one. So there was no callbacks, no risk of dropping them, which was quite prevalent at the time. There was no internet, there was no cell phones. So we were pretty aggressive. I don't know how much good that's doing us now, but point is we were growing like a weed. So then we started doing local long distance storage. And then we started dabbling in commercial, which got us into relocation. In 1996, we started our own relocation company because of how prevalent corporate relocations were at the time. I think they're one of the largest relocation companies in the world now. And so we went in 1990, starting with just me in sales, to 1999, we did 23 million. And that's at the time, in the mid 90s, our 3-man rate was $75 an hour, just to kind of put things into perspective for what 20 million bucks would look like today. So at that time we had local, long distance, commercial, storage, a relocation company, and a move management element, which is something I strongly recommend for any independent mover. For you being in Tampa, in my opinion, if you don't have some form of a move management element to give you the ability to transport somebody from Tampa to Seattle, you could be missing some opportunities there. I would never recommend you put that on your own truck, but there's certainly plenty. Right now, as an example, at MG, we're using NextMove as our primary resource to get stuff shipped outside of our common service lanes. So what we do is we get a price from them, we go back to our client with a margin, and we pass that ball off, and that way we're not turning away clients that are outside of our service lanes. We can always make a margin. We don't have to turn anybody away. So in 2000, we decided we wanted to take the commercial division more seriously. We were doing about $1 million at the time, and I stopped doing what I was doing for the overall operating of the company, took over the commercial division, and JK is now the largest commercial mover in DC. We went from $1 million in 2000 to 20 million in 2009.
Wow.
And that's really pretty much when they became the behemoth. And at that point, I had other interests, so I decided to resign from the company. So we parted ways, took a couple years off, and went to work after that. In 2012, I went to work for Able, another independent mover. A couple of good friends of mine from high school started that company, two brothers. I went to Able May of 2012, helped them. They were doing close to 5 million at the time. Kind of used the same playbook that I had built at JK. In 2012, we're doing just under 5 million. And I left there in 21, we were doing 40 million. So that had a good run there. And when I think back, as I was preparing for this call, I'm thinking about, what the secret sauce is, right? How does all this happen? Because I know it wasn't me that did it. If I look at the people that I work with or that worked for me, I can see their role very easily. I see what they did. When I look at the owners, yeah, I can see their participation, but they didn't do it, So it's not the owners, it's not the CEO. I was a CEO at Able. I was the executive VP at JK for 30 years. It wasn't some figurehead that did it. It was the people that did it. And I think when I reflect on it, I think about how did the people do it, And I think as I was preparing for this call, because I normally don't think about this kind of stuff, what did it, And so what did it is trying to find as good a person as you can that has the same moral foundation that you do, right? And that's a shot in the dark. Two, I learned something a long time ago. People throw going away parties when people quit. Well, people really need to throw parties when people join the company. If they've spent half the time and energy throwing a party that they did when someone quit as when they did when they started, they'd probably have a more welcoming workforce. So to welcome the new people and to give them every chance you possibly can and to have an environment that doesn't have traditional pitfalls that the moving industry breeds. So what does the moving industry breed? Some belligerent redneck owner that doesn't really care about people, some broken down truck without air conditioning. And when it breaks down on the side of the highway at night, they tell you to call a wrecker. The fact that, you're not home with your family on a holiday because you're driving a truck. The way that you're treated, the equipment that you're put in, the way that your customers are set up ahead of time, I didn't see any customers today, but we have drivers and helpers that saw tons of them. And they're the ones that are taking the beating from a blown estimate or somebody that shows up late or somebody that wasn't given the proper details to do a good job. Somebody that didn't bring the 5 mirror cartons along with them this morning. I can assure you it wasn't the crew's fault. It was somebody in the office on the front end that didn't equip them to bring the 5 mirror cartons with them. And they're just going to beat the hell out of the crew. They didn't do anything wrong. So we have a misaligned torment. It's there's a misalignment of behaviors in our industry. And caring about people and what they experience through the course of any day, to me, is what I've always been able to bring to the table. To me, somebody that comes to work for me, it's a gift for me. It's not,
I love that.
To me, that honestly, and I got to stop babbling, but to me, that's because I thought, you and I talked ahead of time, and I'm thinking, what the hell am I going to say? And to me, if I think about it, making sure that the people that work for me are set up to succeed and to be treated appropriately, and that the common pitfalls that the moving industry breeds, our people are not subjected to.
Yeah, I love the saying that happy team members make happy clients and happy clients make a happy owner. And it's your job as the owner, as the leader, to make the people that work for you feel fulfilled and give them a sense of purpose and something that they can be proud of. And it's interesting, with all the success that you've achieved with helping to grow JK and, all the success that you've had with growing MG and, 175 employees, that, you'd think it was some secret sauce with like a marketing source or software technology. But no, I mean, it just comes down to the people at the end of the day, because this is a people business. Our inventory, it's not like a retail business where you keep inventory on the shelf. Our inventory is the people that we have and the people that we can make happy. And it's a very people driven business because you're also servicing the client. And to your point earlier about like the, redneck owner or whatever, I think that's a lot of what has given our industry a stigma, because they don't know how to relate to the team members that, sometimes come from blue collar backgrounds. Maybe they're young and this is their first job. Maybe they don't have a whole lot of other options because of other decisions they've made in their lives, and be able to relate to them and give them a sense of purpose and fulfillment, but then relate to that high end client who has the $5 million house, or the corporate executive, or whoever it may be that you're doing the account work, and having that dynamic personality that can, basically relate to each type of person and each type of income bracket, because you really have to be successful in this business, I think. Most of you have heard me talk about Moversville and the power of their email marketing service that has helped us increase leads by over 112% over the last year. But have you heard of Moversville Connect? Moversville Connect is an incredible resource for all things moving. They feature an array of vendors and services and lists like insurance providers, softwares, equipment suppliers, marketing sources, and much, much more. The best part, this resource is free. Go check out Moversville Connect today by going to moversville.com and clicking Connect. That's moversville.com and click Connect and discover the world of Moversville beyond email. One of the worst parts about owning a moving company has to be finding quality movers and drivers. Trying to run all the job ads takes up time, and then you schedule guys to come in for interviews and they never show up. It's a massive headache. Well, let me tell you about a good friend of mine named Winston who runs a company called Move Up Consulting. Move Up specializes in hiring and recruiting for the moving and storage industry, and they do all the lead generation for mover and driver candidates. They have a fully built hiring CRM, plus you get a dedicated account manager who phone interviews and screens all of your candidates. Once they find qualified candidates, they schedule in-person interviews for you and your management team so you can make great hires. They even handle all the appointment confirmations. It's that simple. To start building a better moving team today, visit moveupconsulting.com and tell them Wade sent you. Want to know what the silver bullet for growing your business is? USA Home Listings. USA Home Listings has a myriad of marketing services that are essential to every single moving company. It blows my mind when I have conversations with people who reach out looking for help, trying to get leads, trying to get the phone to ring, that aren't doing mailers and aren't subscribed to USA Home Listings. The data there is so invaluable, and it's not just home listing data, even though that's an awesome, super easy, super intuitive feature that they provide where you can filter out all of the homes that recently went under contract or got listed in your neighborhood, and a new coming soon feature before it even hits the MLS that you can filter out through zip codes, towns, cities, counties, prices. But that's just one small feature that they do. They also have turnkey mailing services. They'll help you design your postcard, a postcard that actually gets results. If you've tried mailers in the past and it didn't work, it's probably because you didn't have the right elements on your postcard. And they also have a social media division. So check out usahomelistings.com. It's an essential addition to all of your marketing needs. Before you do any other marketing, check out usahomelistings.com. Have you read any books, or how did you learn about, your leadership abilities? So, what was it, trial by error? I'm just curious, does it come naturally to people?
I would like to say it did, but I think maybe some of it did. My mom and dad came to work for my brother and I when we right after we started making hay. They were both in management with Verizon. They were basically, they were in management with Verizon. And my brother and I really and education wasn't prevalent in our background. So we needed help, and they were our mentors. And there was a couple key things. First of all, my parents were exceptionally nice people. They were good to people at every level. And so I think that was instilled in us at a young age. The other thing was, I remember my mom set us down in the early 90s when we were probably doing some stupid stuff at the time. And she said, if you have the last name of Kuhn, that means you have to work harder than anybody else. So why don't you all get your act together and stop messing around and make sure that no one outperforms you. So, after that we're hiring people at every conceivable level. And I think we're still both waiting to find somebody that can outwork us. I don't know how great that is, but it made a big difference. I can tell you that. And then the other thing we realized we couldn't do it all ourselves, and in the mid '90s we hired a consulting firm. Real intelligent man ran the firm, and I still have the ringing in my ears from what this guy told us, because I really respected the heck out of him. He said, what you guys need to make sure of is that your company never outgrows you. And I'm going to teach you how to do that. So, and I don't know if you've seen it personally, but first of all, when he said that to me, it scared me to death. And since then, I have seen so many companies, especially moving companies, where the company outgrew the capabilities of the owners. And it can create a pretty toxic environment when the owner has some form of insecurities or inferiority over the company that's outgrowing his capabilities to control it and run it. He has people that are smarter than him that he hasn't delegated the proper authorities to, or he has delegated it and then he gets jealous because they know more than he does. There's a ton of things that can come when a company outgrows the owner's capabilities when it's not done correctly. And all I can say is, that scared the hell. It still keeps me up at night when I think about it. But when I do run into my limits, I just find people that are better than me to pass the ball to. And especially I'm 61 years old. In this day and age, there's so many things that I don't know. So you have to learn how to delegate, trust, and empower, once you get to a certain level.
I agree. That's a big bottleneck that I see a lot, and I've been guilty of it too, is like thinking that as the owner or the leader of the company, you have to be able to do everything. If somebody can't do something, then first gut instinct is to do it for them. But that's not empowering leaders. Ultimately, figuring out a way to empower your inner circle to become leaders themselves, who can then empower the people underneath them to also become leaders, is, I think, truly the only real way to scale a company and the only way to really build that into the culture of a company. Because if it bottlenecks at one person, and I think we see this all the time in the moving industry, where you've got one guy who's doing all the sales, he's doing all the dispatching, he's doing all the hiring, he's doing and those companies can only get so big. And then you see these really ultra successful companies, 10, 20, $30 million plus companies. They've got entire teams of people that a lot of times they offer paths to advancement. They offer opportunities to grow with the company and to demonstrate and to bring out the best in people. Because sometimes a moving job it's it's a second chance for a lot of people. Maybe they, you know, messed up somewhere along the course, and then this is where they landed because it was all they could work with. But under the right leadership, I've seen a lot of really I've seen a lot of people that otherwise may not have developed into really, really good leaders themselves, and open up a lot of opportunities for themselves. And it's not just a dead end job. And that's where a lot of owners and companies get it wrong, I think, is that they bring in people just to do a job, and those people see it as a dead end job, where in reality it can really open up doors if they are given the tools to in the path to do that. How do you go about like giving promotions or allowing people to grow inside your company? I imagine you have some sort of like a path to advancement.
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's, by the way, that's a great observation that you just made. And I want to throw something at you real quick. When you said that, this is the industry of second chances, um, and especially at the crew level, which is where our bread is buttered. Um, so before I move on, I want to just tell you that, in my opinion, think about it. Think about the average person that would come to work as a mover or a driver for a moving company. They didn't come in here on a roll, right? They're not, they didn't just win the lottery. They didn't just graduate from an Ivy League school. They're not on a roll. They probably had a pretty tough time, you know, and and they probably had a pretty tough childhood, and it probably just got worse after that. So first of all, what could happen to a person that had any element of a soul that was salvageable if someone like you or I treated them with decency and respect? That right there will tell you what could be bred. Does the flower bloom? Can you do something? So to me that's the most critical part of what any leader in this industry could do, is how you truly treat people as a one-on-one, and then through benefits, the truck they drive, training, how they're treated throughout. If you have an operations manager that runs around bullying people, that you can't have that stuff. So that's a kind of a foundational operational piece for me. But getting on to what you said, after you have the right chemistry, where somebody that's had a tough life that could see the light, the opportunity, because of the way you treat them. After that, and I can tell you that is a gift. That's probably my greatest gift over the last 44 years I've been doing this stuff. In the last 44 years, the greatest gift I've had is watching people like that grow, appreciate, turn their lives around. The quality of the cars they drive, the families they latch on to, the homes they drive home to. It's special. Anyways, so how you get there? So everybody has a career path. So if you're I don't care if you're a helper. The last thing I want to do is have somebody coming in bitching at me about it. I want to raise. Well, if you're a helper, this is your lane, and if you've been here for X amount of time, this is your wage. This is how much you can make. And it escalates over time if you've met these performance standards. It's not about senior. So a helper is no different than if I hired a sales manager. Everybody has performance standards. It doesn't have a lot to do with tenure. I've never been impressed with tenure. I'm impressed with performance and attitude. So if somebody, we've all run into it: helpers, drivers, warehouse people, dispatchers, operations managers, you name it. Everybody wants to know when they're going to get a raise and get evaluated and everything else. So, in my opinion, you have to have a career path graph that spells out how they can achieve these milestones. So it's really not up to me. It's up to them. That's one. Then two is just having personal performance plans for everybody. We do quarterly. We don't do annual reviews. We do them quarterly. So everybody's evaluated on a quarterly basis. It's not a long song and dance. It's not a template. It's not checking a box. It's real. Here's what I need. Here's what you're doing right. Here's what you're doing wrong. Here's what I'd like you to see you can improve over the next quarter. And here's the resources that I suggest that you look into to see how you can improve.
Makes a lot of sense. In case you haven't already heard about it, I want to tell you about the latest project that I've been working on called Tighten Up Training. And it's not just me, it's 3 other world-class moving company owners from around North America that have pooled together our resources, our time, and our knowledge to bring you the #1 training program for moving companies in the world. We've got over 200 videos on mover training, sales, culture, leadership, and we're continuing to add more and more to streamline training. We gamify the process in short little videos that are easy for your team to follow, and they're quizzed on retention. Rather than spend hundreds of thousands of dollars of your own money and months of your time tying up resources away from your own moving company, we're bringing you Tighten Up Training for less than the cost of 1 damage claim a month, or less than the cost of booking 1 extra move per month. You book 1 extra move, it pays for itself. You save the time to have to take away time from your day or pay somebody to train new employees and to onboard new employees, it pays for itself. You avoid 1 damage claim or book 1 extra move a month, you got it. It pays for itself. It's so affordable. And we put so much time, money, and resources into this to build out something that our companies can use every day so that we can tighten up this summer and reduce claims. Since our company has gone on here, we're booking more jobs than ever, and we're reducing more claims than we've ever had. And we are teed up to have the best summer ever. So check out Tighten Up Training. Schedule a free 30-minute demo today by going to tightenuptraining.com. What are you looking for in a team member, whether it's entry level or for sales or maybe a more of a management position? Like, what are the traits that you look to hire for?
Since 1998 or 9, I have not hired anybody for any position without using a personality profile tool. And there's a ton of them out there. The most popular is DISC. I personally like the Incline survey tool. It takes 5 minutes for somebody to take. It's real easy to understand and read. Your executive team can get certified in it. It's called Incline Survey. And there's typically 4 elements of a personality. Whether you're authoritative or not, whether you're extroverted or introverted, whether you're patient or impatient, and whether you have detail or not. And how they sync up matters as well. There's a science to it. So if you're going to hire a salesperson, you want an extrovert who's impatient. If you're going to hire a driver that's safe, you want the polar opposite of that. You don't want an extrovert who's impatient to drive your trucks. So you can actually establish profiles that gives you a graph that shows you, what design of these personality types you're looking for as the perfect driver, the safest driver, the best salesperson, the best accountant, the best customer service person, etc. So as an example, what we do here is the HR department when they have a prospective applicant, they'll send them an incline survey. If they don't meet the profile, we don't interview. So how much time does that save? How many people have we interviewed over the years that aren't really what we're looking for? So you go from 10 interviews to one, but when you interview the one, it is the optimal applicant for that position. So it's a significant differentiator when you're hiring people, in my opinion.
Interesting. We started doing some disc profiles back in 2019, and for some reason we stopped doing it at some point. But I know that I can think of like 2 or 3 people that still work for us to this day and that are some of our key people, and they were hired for entry level positions after doing that. And I think the biggest thing that I took away from the disc profile is that we made it a barrier to advance in your employment process. So what we found is that a lot of people we'd say they, apply online, and we'd say, okay, in order to get an interview, you'd have to complete this profile. And a lot of people just never did it. And it was a really good weed out process that, we kind of stumbled on to determine whether or not they were going to do a small little detail that only took 15 minutes to advance on to the next process. And, it was kind of a little experiment we tried back then. And since you brought it up, I just thought of this instance, and I look at it and I see that we have, I think, 3 out of I don't know how many people we did it for that actually completed that are still with us today. Some of our longer tenured people that have advanced through different roles in the company. And last summer, probably about this time, I actually had a podcast with a guy named Vince Brano, and I think he was affiliated with JK for a while.
Yeah.
And he gave us an assessment for sales, and that one was we looked at a little bit more of the results for that one, and it was really helpful in determining if this person's cut out to be an actual salesperson, because not everybody is. You have to be cut from a certain cloth to sell. So the fact that you said that definitely kind of makes me want to revisit that plan, because I know we've had some good success using it in the past, and I don't even, to be completely honest, know why you might have stopped doing that.
Just like everything else, it's stuff falls through the cracks all the time. And I need to check out that one with Vince. I hear he's smart as heck. So
yeah, he was at our last retreat. I haven't checked to see if he's got a ticket for this upcoming one, but he's a really smart guy. He knows his stuff.
That's what I hear.
Switching gears a little bit, you mentioned that you had a lot of corporate relocation accounts. I'm not sure if you're referring to commercial or if you were involved in like the HR side of like moving the residential side of big corporate companies that are bringing people, to different locations or bringing people in for a job or whatever. Can you talk a little bit more on like how you developed that program and how you kind of got your foot in the door for those corporate relocations for larger companies, especially like on the residential side for the employees, because that's something that I've been really interested in for a long time.
Absolutely. So where did it start? Well, any form of diversity that I've ever done comes from slow winters, desperation. For me, desperation is a great motivator. When we're not working our people, I can't sleep at night. So, it's probably the winter of '93. We're not that busy, right? I mean, traditionally in the residential business, 60% of the annual revenue happens in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a healthy bell curve. So how do you bring up the wings? Well, commercial is the easiest one to get to. But at the time when I was optimized and selling, I got curious about corporate relocations because it was more prevalent back then. It was before the third parties took over. The third parties were Cardis, Serva, Weicker, whoever else. Before they came in, movers used to deal direct with corporations through their HR departments and relocating their employees. That's coming back, by the way. And it's coming back because the current generation of office staff in a corporation is smarter than they used to be. You know, they don't want to spend $250,000 to relocate an executive from Tampa to Milwaukee. They want to give that employee a lump sum amount and say, move your stuff. You know, back in the day, they would, in 1994, the average cost of a corporate relocation for an executive was $250,000.
Wow.
The move was 10 grand. So how do you get to $250,000? Well, travel, home shopping, travel, sell the house, realtor fees, buy the house, realtor fees. If they don't sell the house for enough, you gotta gross up the employee to make up for the deficit they're having in their home because you're trying to relocate them and you don't want them to take a hit on their real estate. They get to the destination before the house is done, so you have to put them up in temporary housing. Then they go in storage. If there's spousal assistance and family assistance for programs to get them used to the new city they're moving into, all those things cost money. And then there's expense management that goes over top of all that. It's very expensive. So all of that cost a lot of money. That's how it got to $250,000. Well, you got a Generation X guy in HR working for Microsoft. He's probably not going to play that game nowadays. Or a tech company. Some young kids they're not going to be that extravagant. That gives you and I an opportunity to go after that business. So if you're out doing a COD estimate tomorrow, and the homeowner said, you say to the homeowner, so why are you moving? Well, my husband's getting transferred and they want us to get 3 estimates. That's the best opportunity for a guy like you and I to get a national account with a corporation today. Because that means that corporation is putting their employees in harm's way and telling their employees to go get 3 estimates. They're going to go with a low bid, and their relocating employee that they're really supposed to keep happy is not going to be happy if that move doesn't go well. So if you can help coach that transferee into helping you penetrate that corporation when the move is over, keep them happy, they'll help refer you into the corporation. Next thing you know, you call when you get the letter of authorization from the HR guy. Once the move is done and the customer's happy, you can then go to that corporation and say, hey, rather than subject your employees to this type of thing, why don't you just refer me to your transferring employees and I'll make sure they're happy? Because now I have the risk of losing a bunch of moves versus 3 guys off the street that only have to worry about, they don't care if you're happy or not. It's just one move to them. Mm-hmm. To me, it's a long-term relationship with you. Does that make any sense to you?
That makes total sense. And a family friend of mine, he was an executive with Caterpillar, big Fortune 500 company, and they used Cardis through the corporate ranks. And he just did not like how that system worked, having to go, to his HR department, who went to the move manager, who went to some van line, who had their agent, who had their independent owner operator truck driver, who hired help on the other end. Like, there was just so many different layers. And when it came time to bring his stuff into storage here in Tampa, he's building a house up in South Carolina. He's like, I'm done with Cardis. I'm done with, going through the channels of corporate America. He's like, obviously he knew me, so I had a little bit of an in, but he's just like, I just want this done where I can talk to one company, ideally one representative from one company, and they can handle everything. And I think, everything's kind of coming full circle where, I can see in the 90s before a lot of the technology and, not as many resources for independent movers, you kind of had to lean on these big corporate giants and van lines and move management companies to move all the different parts. But now that things are becoming a lot more streamlined with CRMs and more technology and resources like our retreats and our training programs where we can collaborate and mastermind with other moving company owners to figure out the best experience for the consumer rather than just what's the best experience to fill our pockets and make a bunch of people a bunch of money up the ladder. I think that's what companies are starting to realize, and you have a lot more people working from home now. It's not as traditional of a work environment, even in corporate America, and people have a lot more resources to be able to do their own diligence and resource with the internet. You mentioned the Yellow Pages earlier, and I got in right as the Yellow Pages were getting out, and it was all about Google, and it was all about your online reputation. But even that, I think it's come full circle. People are just looking for what is the best way to do business with other people and what is the best consumer experience that a company can provide. And if you can try to get in there to be the path of least resistance and provide an amazing service, and you've got an amazing team that keeps your customers happy, I think that's ultimately the future. But that's good information. I mean, it's basically, it just comes down to doing business right, staying consistent, and creating a raving fan, and the word travels to the right people when that happens on a regular basis.
100%. And when you think about that guy that worked for Caterpillar, that's a compelling reason why the younger generation is not participating in these large, expensive programs with these large RMCs. The RMCs had a value add at one time. They really did. They, but everybody, they're either publicly traded or more worried about the bottom line than they are the quality of service. And that guy's a perfect example of it. I mean, could you imagine if you or I had an executive with Caterpillar? We'd treat him like freaking gold.
Oh yeah.
And they totally screwed him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, that pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered.
I like that saying.
And that's exactly, and the younger generation, that next generation of HR people that are going to work at Caterpillar are not going to put up with that crap.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that kind of reminds me of something else. If I was going to give, I'm sorry that I'm talking so much. The last sales meeting I did here was about making your own economy.
I like that.
Right now the economy for movers sucks. I haven't talked to a mover lately that's really killing it. So what can we do? Because and this reminds me, through the years I've probably been through 6 types of recessions. But what can we do to make our own economy? What you were just talking about is one of them. If you have a company paid move, try and establish a relationship with that company and just at least get referred to the next person they're going to move and be one of 3 bids there, because that HR person will consider you because you have a relationship more so than the other 2 COD guys that are just coming in off the street. So a corporate relocation might not be affected by the economy. The aging population is not being affected by the economy. There's nothing the economy can do to slow up the clock. The people that are moving, that are seniors, that are moving into retirement homes or aging in place, there's a whole huge market happening right now that every mover out there can take full advantage of. And then the next thing would be, rentals. We're so focused on realtors and home sales. Screw that. I mean, that thing's that's falling fast. That's why everybody's so slow. So go down the street and build a relationship with a luxury high rise,
Mm-hmm.
and figure out how they're going to refer you in, because those rentals are running hot and heavy right now.
Oh yeah, and they make great moves. I mean, you have a 2 bedroom condo on the 30th floor of a high rise. You're going to have to park the truck pretty far away. You're going to have to deal with elevators. There's a lot of time even for a smaller place, but the people that live there are paying $4,000 a month to have it. They've got money, they've got the means to have nice things that they want professionally handled. And, that those moves can be just as big, if not bigger than, a full size 4 bedroom house going from point A to point B, because the logistics that go into it and the quality of service you have to be able to provide. You have to offer a premium service to just set foot on the premise. You have to have the right insurance and obviously an inn there. So I agree 100%. And, just because everybody got so comfortable during COVID, sending their postcards out or relying on the houses that were selling. And now that house sales have slowed down and there's just not as many people that are wanting to pay the interest rates to own, they're renting. And there's other lines. There's restoration work. There's corporate work, like you just mentioned. There's interior design work and receiving, and all kinds of different things. Are you guys big into a lot of those other subcategories of referral business?
We're trying. We probably cover just about every base you could think of. The last mile work, the decorator work and stuff like that is prevalent right now. It's great. So that's a great point.
I know when I moved into my current home, I didn't really bring a lot of furniture. I bought mostly new things, and I actually had a mover friend of mine who owns a company. He also owns a furniture store, and his wife's an interior designer. And I had her just FaceTime her around the house, and she helped me pick out stuff from their store, and they had it shipped in, and had my guys a lot of it received here at our warehouse and had it delivered. And I think a lot of the more affluent people are doing that. 20 years ago, I know my parents still, they love antiques. They'd take third generation stuff, with them everywhere they went and kept their storage full. But I think a younger generation now of minimalists that are starting to grow their careers, they just want to get new stuff and they want it to match the new house. And I think there's a big opportunity there as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What other lines, creatively speaking, have you found? Like, you mentioned during the slow season, you start to get creative and just find ways to innovate. What else besides those different lines of work have you found to be successful?
Well, commercial is relatively easy, but you have to be careful. You can really get into a mess if you don't know what you're doing. So but it's kind of an easy one. I'll tell you the biggest success we're having is, especially with all the internet movers. If you guys are strictly in Florida, is that right?
We have a location in San Antonio, Texas.
Oh, okay. All right. So, but if you had a 1 bedroom apartment moving from Tampa to St. Paul, Minnesota, you can't. You're not going to price 4,000 pounds and self-haul 4,000 pounds to Minnesota, are you?
Not usually. I mean, we have a few options in that situation. First one is we can quote it and see, if it's going to even be something the customer would want. But usually it's not for something small like that. We just opened up a partnership with Mini Moves that kind of specializes in things like that.
Yeah.
But every now and then we'll get a couple shipments that are going in the same direction that we can put. But we only run straight trucks. We don't run any tractors. So a lot of times we'll price ourselves out and we're looking at different options to basically get somebody a backhaul. We're building our network through things like this podcast and our retreat to be able to hopefully be able to build relationships with other moving companies around the country for backhaul type work for things like that. Or maybe we have a few different shipments going that way. Mini Move's another option. I know you mentioned Next Move. We haven't really explored that, but I've been hearing a lot of really good things from John Hamilton down at Brooks, who I think
Yeah.
one of our business partners with the Moving Titans. There's solutions to it, and it's something that we're continuing to explore. are, but we've got a couple options right now.
Yeah. So as an example, with the way that you're set up, well, here's what I would do, and this is what I'm doing. So between Florida and Virginia, we're trying to market on Google throughout the whole Southeast region. So if we get a call from, we could get a call from Tallahassee or Tampa or Augusta, Georgia, and they're moving to Las Vegas. That one bedroom apartment is not going to go on one of our trucks. So we get a price. We'll get a price from Next Move, or in your case, Mini Moves. I don't know if you can do this with Mini Moves or not, but we'll get a price from Next Move. Let's pretend for a minute it's $5,000, and you get a price of $5,000. You put a margin on that, and you have your crews pack it, load it, and whatever else they need on the origin side. So you get a local move on top of the margin for the long distance move. You build a client, and all you have to do is pay Next Move $5,000. So you're probably billing 10 and paying 5, and you keep your trucks local, and someone else is doing all the work for you. We'll probably do $1 million of that this year. Wow. Or more. So it's just the ones that you would normally, for a local independent company, that isn't self-hauling throughout the country right now. To me, that's the best deal somebody could do. Anyways.
Interesting. Steve, what advice would you give your younger self if you were just starting out in the moving industry?
That's a long list there, buddy. I've made more mistakes than anybody you've ever known. It's a small world, and don't burn bridges.
Love it. I love it. Are there any good books that you recommend, whether it's on leadership or any business practice that you've read that has helped your career and helped to grow what you've grown that you'd recommend to the listeners?
I hate to sound cliche, but probably Good to Great would be the most sensible.
Yep. Jim Collins.
But I hate to jump into that pool because, everybody votes for it. But I will tell you another one that was significant. It's called The Leader Launchpad by Howard Shore.
The Leader Launchpad. Got it. I'm writing that down. I'm a business book junkie, so I'm always looking for good recommendations.
Truthfully, to give you an idea, so he's a consultant out of Miami that we've used, and he's excellent. And if any, not that I would ever recommend this, but if anybody ever wanted to emulate some of what I've done over the years, what Howard Shore indicates in that book is probably the best blueprint for how I've operated and treated people inside of a business over the years.
Love it. Steve, how can people get in touch with you if they want to, touch base or connect with you in any way? I know you'll be at the retreat in Tampa in October, but if anybody wants to follow your journey or reach out, is there a good way that people can get into contact with you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's S Kuhn, Kuhn, at mgmoving.com. And I'm, and like you, I'm in the business of building relationships. One of the big things that excites me about going to the Titan retreat is I need people that I can work with around the country that can offer my customers quality service. I'm not going to do a job in Tampa. I'd much rather, I'd love to hire your company to service our clients going in and out of Tampa. I need as much of that as I can get my hands on right now. So to be able to use that Titan network, for service work and hopefully get something in return.
Absolutely.
But really more important is just like with you and John. I mean, I've learned a lot from John, and I wish I could do what you were doing, man. I just don't. I don't have the guts to do it.
I mean, it definitely spinning a lot of plates. Chad, my other partner with the Moving Titans, tells me I have too many projects going on, but my mind is always going in 10 directions. But it's to build a network. It's what it takes. I mean, the podcast is a great calling card to be able to reach out and have conversations with people like yourself, and the retreat just as much. It brings together people that otherwise would never get to know each other. I think some of the most value, we've got amazing speakers, you being one of them, of course, but some of the most value from events like that is just getting in the room with all these other people that are ambitious, that want to learn something, that share common values. And you never know what's going to happen. I mean, we have trucks going all over the place, and we need help unloading a truck, or I just had my operations manager asking if I knew somebody in Michigan to help load up a truck that a realtor down here referred to us from a client up there. And I said, yeah, absolutely. We'll send a driver up and call a reputable company that I'm personal friends with the owner, and had him on the podcast and comes to our events. And I know we'll be in good hands for that. And that customer will be in good hands at the same time. So that's really what it's all about. It's just getting out there and meeting people, finding those connections, because you never know what opportunities they're going to open at the end of the day.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Steve, thanks so much for coming on to the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. Any closing thoughts before we close it out here?
No, man. I just I can't tell you how honored I am to have been invited, and it's I really appreciate it. I admire what you're doing, so keep going, would you?
Thank you. We really appreciate what you shared with us today. A lot of really valuable insight, and I think it's just the tip of the iceberg for what you'll be able to share at the event coming up. And definitely looking forward to staying in touch. And if we have anything headed your way in Virginia, we always need good people to help out with projects. So thanks again for coming on, and you have a great rest of your day. And
you too, bud.
Moving season strong.
Thank you, Wade. You too, bud.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Grow Your Moving Company podcast. If you would like to learn more about any of the sponsors listed on this show, want to apply for the next Moving Titan retreat, or interested in owning or working for Two College Brothers franchise, drop me a line at wade@twocollegebrothers.com. Moving out. Have a great day.